welcome to Groundwater Talk Live. I am Tom Ballard, the Groundwater guy, and we have an interesting case study for you today. This is one we did a few years ago to locate a water supply well. It is located in Northern California, kind of in the Sierra foothills near Chico, California. And it's an interesting study because we were in a pile of volcanics. And normally you don't think of a hydrostratigraphic analysis when you're thinking volcanics. But in this case, we discovered, and you never can tell when you until you dive into these studies sometimes, is we discovered some specific hydrostratigraphic zones that we were able to identify and really come up with some good recommendations. So so I thought I'd share that with you that even when you're in things like volcanic terrain, that you can still do some of this analysis. We thought it would be a straight fracture trace type of analysis, but it turned out we had some specific hydrostratigraphic zones that we were able to identify that really, produce some modest yields for this area, not huge yields, but we weren't looking for huge yields. And so this is an interesting study. So we're going to dive into that today. But before we go, I would ask you to like, comment, and share if you like our videos. It helps us get the word out there. I answer all the comments that come in, and I appreciate all of them. Our goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. I think that's kind of a modest goal, but we are growing, and I appreciate everybody that subscribes as well. But likes, comments, and shares helps get the word out there. All right, so let's dive in here. So today we're talking about the it's located in a wide spot in the road, I like to call it, called Forest Ranch. Let me adjust my camera here. And it is basically a little bit northeast of Chico, California, in Northern California. This is we'll dive into the geology a little bit, but this is there's some volcanics that are kind of draped over the Sierra foothills there. You get down a little farther towards Chico, towards the west, and you get it starts to dip down towards the valley, and you get what's called the Chico monocline. And so there's a lot of fracturing along there, but up where we're at, you don't get that significant fracturing. So we're originally going into this looking at this as a straight fracture trace and limited assessment type analysis. And when we dove in and started looking at well logs and some of the geology, we were kind of surprised that we were able to actually turn this into a hydrostratigraphic study. So let's kind of go through that there. First, let me go to Google Maps here, or Google Earth, and I will show you where we're at here. This is here we are in Forest Hill, California. This is Forest Ranch. I'm sorry, not Forest Hill, Forest Ranch, and this is the area here. It is if we overlay some general geology, if I back out here a little bit and overlay some general geology on the map, you can see that Forest Ranch here, where our target location was for the wells, this is actually mapped as tertiary pyroclastic and volcanic mudflow deposits, not something you normally think of as having some nice hydrostratigraphic zones. And then this is overlaid on some other rock. This is actually a valley here, and you're getting into some marine sediments, some sandstones, some mudstones in here underlying the volcanics. So let's turn that off, and I can show you the topographic map here. And let me just turn that on here. Take a while to bring this up, but once again, here's Forest Ranch here, and you can see we're on a ridge here. This is the volcanics up here. You get these down cutting streams. That's going to get down into the marine sediments, the sedimentary rocks down below. But up here where we're at, we got a fair amount of relief. We're looking at mainly volcanics here. So that is, we had quite a bit of wells here. And let me just go down here and turn these on. There are a lot of wells we ended up looking at here, and our study area is this area in red. That's the service area for the water district here, and let me turn off the topographic map here because that kind of slows things down a little bit when we're online here. So you can see these are all the wells we looked at. There's a lot of wells we looked at in this area. It took a long time to go through these things, and what we found is kind of surprising. As I mentioned, that we got into some hydrostratigraphy, and we were able to actually come up with some pretty good recommendations for the test well site. So they had some existing wells here, well A, well B, and well C. One of these wells was impacted by PCE. They were going to abandon that and drill a new well, and that's what the study was for here. We wanted to go deep enough and create a good seal, so we didn't get any of that those shallow contaminants in the well, and that was a consideration also. And so we'll dive in a little bit. We're going to look later at a couple wells here. This is our test well site here, but we're going to look at these two wells here a little bit later, the logs of these, and we're seeing some patterns there that can be extended to most of the wells in this area. And so, but we picked those out because they're the closest, and some pretty good examples of drillers' logs and what you typically see in these situations. So let's move on here. This is the report we produced. I'm going to go through this a little bit here and just go through the geology and the hydrogeology, because when we dove in, like I say, we're looking at mud flows and pyroclastics and volcaniclastics, and so it's just kind of like, oh man, this is going to be a challenge here. So it is the Pliocene Tuscan Formation, and we'll dive in and look back at some more detailed geologic maps here. But it's the Pliocene Tuscan Formation, thickness of about 800 feet at this location. Primarily volcaniclastics. It's underlain by the Miocene Lovejoy basalt, which is about 60 feet thick, so not a real thick unit. And then underneath that is the Cretaceous Chico Formation, and that's the sediments I was talking about. So the Tuscan Formation is an important aquifer to the west, and I'll show you where that is, because you get that flex in what's called the Chico monocline there. You get a lot of fracturing. So so it ends up down there being pretty much a straight fracture trace type of play. Is you want to map out the fractures down there, and that's where your water is, because you're getting a lot of breakage along the crest of that flex. I don't call it a fold per se, because it's a monocline, so it's a gentle flex, but because you have some brittle volcanics there, it breaks up pretty well, and you can get some nice yields down there. That is not the case up where we're at. And so we were kind of scratching our heads initially until we dove into looking at the geology a little bit more detail, some of the clues there, and also the well logs. And there's an abundance of well logs up there, as you could see, and we went through all of them, and that took some time. So what we have is it's not well mapped in this area. And I'll show you the maps. It's kind of a little bit sketchy mapping, so not as much detail as farther to the west. We get in the study area is Tuscan Formation undivided. Just to the west of our study area, they do map out the Tuscan Formation C, which is described as lahar deposits in a matrix of gray tan volcanic mudstone. So doesn't sound real promising for a lot of water, right? So Unit C is brick red and gray volcanic breccia within the lahar deposits, as well as interlayered lahar deposits, volcanic conglomerate, volcanic sandstone, and siltstone. So maybe getting a little more interesting here. Um, the Tuscan Formation undivided, which is how it's mapped a little bit farther to the east of us, and in our area, just basically lahar deposits and conglomerates and some tough deposits in there as well. So highly variable in terms of water production. So that's what we knew going into this. There is some maps that I will show you in just a minute that shows this, but I wanted to get into the hydrogeology a little bit here before we dive into the maps. And as I mentioned here, drillers' logs can be notoriously lacking in detail and completeness from a geologic description point of view, and this is true. They kind of vary all over the place, but we get what we get here. So that's what we were doing. So we dove in and we looked at the well logs. This is the data on the well logs. So we had, they're kind of all over the place. They range from less than 100 feet deep to over 600 feet deep. Um, and kind of getting down into the 700-foot range. So um, most of the wells, more than 500 feet deep, are completed in a gravel unit that starts showing up. And we started looking at this and saying, well, that's interesting, but this seems to show up consistently in these well logs, and this is where people were completing the well. So local driller knowledge, they may not do the best logs sometimes, but local driller knowledge is really valuable. So having a local driller in a situation like this is important. Talking to them because they understand where they're getting water and and so it's worthwhile talking to them and reconnoitering that information, pulling the drill logs, confirming it that way, looking at the geology and tying all this together. So the first gravel layer that people are hitting, that is the saturated zone, it's often called just the saturated zone or or the zone of saturation on the well logs. It runs about 60 to 80 feet deep, thick. So this is actually not a bad target zone for wells that, where you're looking for 20 to 30 to 50 gallons a minute. This is really not a bad target. So it starts to get a little more interesting as we dove into this and saying, well, this has some real possibilities. Um, and so the common descriptions of gravel that shows up on the driller's logs really coincides with the geologic descriptions of the volcanic conglomerate and sandstone from the mapping in the area. So it starts to correlate fairly nicely. We also found, and I will show you this too when we look at the maps, about that same zone on the sides of the cliffs there, or the steep slopes. They aren't all cliffs, but where they drop off there, we start to see some springs popping out along those areas at consistent levels. So this tends to correlate well with where the gravel zone is mapped in the drill log. So you start to see these lines of evidence coming together and saying, yeah, we got a decent zone here, a hydrostratigraphic zone that we can actually get into and get the yields we're looking for. So just one example here I got in the green. The driller's log for well C, which is the one we were replacing, describes 450 feet of hard lava to a depth of 504 feet. Um, and so that's more the flows and some of the harder stuff. But then you get down to the saturation zone from 504 to 600 feet, and that kind of coincides pretty well with the gravel zones described in the other logs, such as the two other nearby wells that I pointed out on the Google Earth, and we'll show you those logs here too. So. They're completed to a depth of at least 600 feet and have gravel and sandstone described in their driller's logs in the same depth range. And we started to see the same pattern. We actually, because the topography varies here, we actually created a chart where we're kind of looking at depth of the zone and and uh, and really trying to map that out. And yeah, it is consistent. So. We also looked at, to further understand the potential depth of the water bearing zone, gravel and sandstone layer. We compared it, pulled all these drill logs, and like I say, there was a close to 100 drill logs we looked at here, so a lot. So um, and only the wells that were drilled to 500 feet or more are shown on the Google Earth map. So quite a few. So, and then we tied everything back to elevations and mapped it out, and we do get some consistent zones there that ended up being our target. So, all right. So let's go on here and let's look at some of the geology here. Um, this is the geologic map of the Chico monocline and northeastern part of the Sacramento Valley. So our area is, if I can scroll up here, where are we at? We are right here. So let me zoom in here. You can see here, these are the Tuscan volcanics here, all the way up into the white to the edge of the map. If you can see that red circle there, I'll dive in. That is Forest Ranch where we're at. And so let's zoom in here and get to that. So. All right, so this is Forest Ranch. You can see we're kind of right on the edge of the mapping here, but you can see the volcanics. They subdivide it fairly well. I mentioned the Chico monocline here where you get all that fracturing. This is the area over here to the west. You can see a lot of northwest trending fracture zones and stuff where the monocline actually flexes down and it creates a lot of breakage. So down there, you're getting some fairly good yields in those fracture zones. We're not seeing that up here. You're kind of getting out of the fractures. Not much mapped up here. There's a few mapped, but we were fortunate to get the hydrostratigraphy. So let's look at also, um, this is the, let me get over to that here. This is the geologic map of the Chico Quadrangle. It is, let me zero in here on our area. We are, where are we at here? Oh yeah, up here. So here's the Chico monocline again. This is our area here, right here. So um, this is Forest Ranch here, and you can see once again the flex in the Chico monocline creates a lot of fracturing in there. But up here, not quite so much. So, but these are the volcanics. Not as detailed the mapping as in this map, but it does show the bigger area. And then you get up in the Sierras with the plutons and the granites and all that as well. All right, so moving on. Let's go back to our, where are we at here? Okay, so I'm sorry. Let's look at this. This is our topo map for the area, and you can see here we mapped out some ponds and some springs along here. This is our area here on the topo map. These are figures from the report, and then down here is our Google Earth figure where you can see all the wells we looked at. These are the deeper wells and our target area. And once again, you can kind of see on the edge here, you're seeing some springs and some ponds. We actually ended up mapping out some more possible springs along here. And so you're starting to see stuff, the elevations we see, the gravel zone that is mapped, the saturated zone, and where these springs pop out. they correspond very nicely. So once again, kind of a total coincidence, and you never can tell about these things until you dive in. But very interesting here. Um, this is a chart we did where we actually went in and we plotted up some of the information from the wells, the drilling date and the uses, the depth of the well, um, the gallons per minute we were looking at, the actual street address, not that important for what we're talking about today. But then we're looking at, we actually plotted up based on the drill logs, the depth of the volcanics, the bottom of the volcanics, the gravel saturated zone. And then we looked at the surface elevation and the elevation. So we tied this back, we corrected for elevation, and then we started looking at the elevation to the bottom of the saturated zone here. So we could basically map that out and determine what our target depths were based on surface elevation to get down into that gravel zone that had the good yields. This is this is some nice analysis that took quite a while to put together because we had to go through so many drill logs, and drill logs can be hard to sift through sometimes. This is going back and just showing. We looked at we're going to look at some specific wells right in here. This is the well we're replacing, and we looked at some of the wells right over in here. Uh, excuse me, coughing a lot today. This is the actual site, so that's not really important to what we're doing today, where we're doing the test well. What's really important is we're looking at the hydrostratigraphy. So these are all the well data we went through, and we have logs for all these as well. So there's PDF well logs, but you can see this is a lot of data here, and it goes through, and we got the drill date, the township range, location, the use, parcel number, perforations, information, the depth, the gallons per minute, static water level, not a lot of that on there, drawdown, driller information. So a lot of information here we compiled into this table, and you can see we went through each and every one of these well logs and pulled the information off. So this took quite a bit of time. The two wells we're going to look at here are the ones closest to the target property here, and that is 11285 and 13404. So we can see that these we didn't have any. We had this particular one had a yield of 30 gallons a minute, so that was getting in the range. We didn't have a yield for this one, but we do know it is a producer, and you can see the depths here: 590, 620, and that's kind of in the range that people were drilling out there to hit this saturated zone. So quite a few, multiple pages of well logs, and so let's just look at these real quick. This is the first well that we're looking at. So you can see not a lot of detail here, but what's really important is in this particular well, this is you get the gravel and sandstone down here. You see the Tuscan lava before that. They're just undivided. They're just logging it 5 to 518 feet. And then it gets interesting. You get into this gravel and sandstone from 518 to 590, and that is where the yields are. They mapped this one at 20 gallons a minute. That did not get on the chart, but it was initially mapped out or tested at 20 gallons a minute. So a decent yield for this area. But what's really important here is we're seeing this consistent zone in a lot of these logs. Now, it varies a little bit what they describe. Different drillers do things a little bit differently, but not a lot of detail on here. But what's really important is we're seeing this particular zone here that we're looking for, and we got a depth on it. And this is that other one. basically the same driller, different time, different, and so they mapped it out a little bit differently. But once again, we're getting down to you got the Tuscan mud flows, and so that's the lava that was mapped in that previous one, down about 500 feet again. And then from 500 to 520, they got into what they're calling cemented gravels here. And then they have this note here, main H2O source from 597 to 603. So that would likely be the gravel because we're in the cemented gravels. So they got some uncemented zone in there. That's probably what this is. And so we're seeing that certainly fits with the depths. And you can go through all these drill logs, and the deeper drill logs, the ones that are 500 to 700 feet, are consistently showing some sort of gravel zone down there at these consistent depths. And when you normalize everything back to the elevations in the topography, then you're seeing you're able to come up with the target depth for this area. It's fairly consistent, and we were able to basically take this and design up a well to hit this target zone and give them the yields they were looking for. And they were they were trying to replace a well that supposedly did 50 gallons a minute. I'm not sure it really did. But if you're in the 20 to 40 gallon a minute range, which is entirely possible from this gravel zone, then they were going to get the water they needed for this. So there you have it. That is an interesting little study here. Let's go back here to, I'm going to go back to Google Earth here, and I will show you. This is our well over here. This is the well log here for this is 1285, so you 11285, and you can see that has the 518 to 590 gravel and sandstone, and that is relative to our target property up here. So really not that far away. We're looking at, if we measure distance here on Google Earth, we're measuring from here down to, okay, so what is our distance here? So down to here, we're looking at about 1,076 feet. To this one, we're looking at about 1,400 feet. So you're well within the range here. So those are kind of what we were using for to determine our where our target zone was. A lot of these other wells that are a little bit deeper corroborate that. Let's look at, this is that other log we looked at that had the cemented gravels and the 597 to 603. So you can see where that is relative to this well and the well here. And so we're consistently hitting that zone down about that depth in here. So that's where we targeted for our test well. So, and so they did pretty good with that. They went back and rebid it a number of times, and so but they finally got around to that. There was some funding that took a long time to get. So it took a while to end up drilling that, and so it's been a few years, and so we can finally talk about this project here. So there you have it. That is. Let me just throw the topo back up here so you can see the topography once again. And once again, we are up on the ridge here. This is Tuscan volcanics. And you can kind of see, you know, we got a little bit of dips here, but it tails off here. Here's our springs that are about the same interval as you get here, where you get those gravel zones. So it all ties together very nicely with hydrostratigraphy that we were not expecting when we went into this project. So I think the important takeaway here is that you don't always know, and we need to keep our minds open because we ran into this, and you need to start recognizing patterns. You start looking at these well logs, and you're really looking for patterns. And it's hard sometimes because the well logs, they don't they're done by drillers. They're not done by geologists, and geologists sometimes complain about that. But you get the information you get, and you got to start looking for patterns in that information. So you pull them together, and then you start looking at the geology and just things like the springs popping out there. Those can be important. We've used that on multiple occasions when we're doing hydrostratigraphic analysis. Is you start looking at the springs, and they're a valuable clue. So that gives you kind of a 3D look under the ground between the well logs, the springs, and what we know for geologic cross sections. Not real good mapping in this area, but we got enough with the well logs and our other analysis on the ground. We were able to kind of put it together and come up with a nice little hydrostratigraphic unit that we were able to target for the test well. So there you go. That's just another example of keeping your eyes open and getting unexpected results sometimes, but that's the fun part of hydrogeology. All right, so that